lot of you are familiar with it. We're going to, excuse me, deleting an item. A lot of that is going to be stuff that you're familiar with, but you'll see the questions asked in different ways, and I'm guessing a little bit of the stuff that applies more to the geometry side of it with acute and obtuse, maybe a little bit new for people. Ask if you have questions. It is going to ask you to write stuff in radical form and in decimal form, so you will need a calculator. If anybody needs a calculator, get up and grab one now. Anybody else need a calculator? Now is the time, because we came in and did folder stuff. You might not have grabbed one. Okay, guys, here we go. So getting started. This is a right triangle. In a right triangle, the two pieces that are connected to the right angle, these are called the legs. The legs are always going to be on the left side, so it's going to be a squared plus b squared equals, and then the hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle. That's, guys, if there's anything you're going to get out of this chapter, knowing where the hypotenuse is affects everything in this semester, literally everything. If anytime you've got a right triangle, the segment that is across from that is going to be your hypotenuse. This one is always going to be the hypotenuse. And it always goes on the right hand side by itself. It's written as c squared. Okay. We're going to use that in trig. We're going to use that in special right triangles. It's going to be important. The hypotenuse is a big deal. Okay, so this is Pythagorean theorem. The a and the b can be in any order. It can be b squared plus a squared. The only thing that has to be true is c. The hypotenuse has to be on here. If it's in numbers, c is always the biggest number. Okay, so if you have like 5, 12, and 13, 13 is going to be the c. Whichever one is largest or greatest number is going to go there. Pythagorean theorem states in words the same thing that we've written there. In a right triangle, the sum of the squares of the legs equal the square of the hypotenuse. Basically, if it's a right triangle, Pythagorean theorem will make it so that the two sides are equal to each other. It also says the converse, which is if the two sides are equal to each other, then it will be a right triangle. Okay? You're going to be asked to decide if things are right triangles in a second. So here's how we're going to use this. When you see a picture like this, you're going to need to identify first the hypotenuse. The first thing we're going to do is draw that line across, circle that. That is going to be the one that goes last every time. That's the C every time. So we're going to write it as 7 squared plus x squared equals 14 squared. Again, the hypotenuse has to go last. So grab your calculators. What's 7 squared? 49 plus x squared equals, okay, type in the 14 squared. $196. There we go. So now you have an equation where you've got a variable over here. You want to get that 49 to go away from that variable. So to do that, you're going to minus 49 minus 49. That's going to bring it down as x squared equals, and then you're going to do the math and do 196 minus 49. What's that give you? 147? 147. Perfect. Now, what, guys, whenever we do the multiplication, the opposite of that is division. The opposite of subtraction is addition. What is the opposite of squaring something? Ooh. So, wait, I thought somebody said it. What's the opposite of squaring something? Right next to it on the calculator. Look at your calculator. Square root. Yes, it is the square root. So to get rid of this little square on here, we've got to take the square root of both sides to find out what that number is by itself. So here's the deal. It wants it in radical form, because the test, the homework and the test, and they can ask it different ways. I think it's got a section for each. One is in radical form, and then the next one wants it rounded to the nearest tenth. So grab your calculators, hit 147, and hit the square root button. That's this one, guys. Looks like this on your calculator. Is it a whole number? No, it's got decimals. So for the radical form, we're just going to write square root of 147 and leave it alone. Okay. For the decimal, we're going to need to round it off to the nearest tenth. So let me grab my calculator. 147 square root. it's going to be 12.12 with more stuff after it. But if it's a 1 with a 2 after it, that's going to round to 12 point what? 12.1. Perfect. The reason is, guys, if this number after it is a 5 or above, you round it up. If it's anything below that, you're going to keep it the same. Since it was a 2, you leave it the same. 12.1 is your final answer for the decimal form. So this is the radical form. Okay? Radical form, if you want to put something out there, this is going to be the decimal form. There's 2 separate answers there. I think in the homework it's like 2 separate sections. One is for radicals and one is for decimals. Anybody have any questions, concerns, anything just on that first one? Okay, let's keep going. On this one, identifying the hypotenuse is the first thing you have to do every time, especially in the pictures. You got to identify that your x in this case is going to be the one that is your hypotenuse. So it's going to be 5 squared plus 3 squared equals x squared. It can be 3 squared plus 5 squared. The 3 and the 5 are interchangeable. Doesn't matter. The 3 and the 5 are fine. Okay. 5 squared is going to be what? 25. 3 squared, that's 9. That one I know. And then that's equal to x squared. What is 25 plus, 25 plus 9? 34 equals x squared. Okay, guys, to undo the square root, you're going to take the square root of both sides. Okay. What is the square root of 34? Is it a nice number? Let's start with that. No, so it's just square root of 34 for the first answer. And then what is that to the near? I won't even write it down. What is that to the nearest tenth? One number after the decimal place. Wait, what was it? 5.8 equals x. Let's check it. 34, hit the square button. Yeah, absolutely, 5.8. Anybody have any concerns, questions about rounding it, anything about it? So basically we have like 4 different slides that have 4 different types of problems. They're all based on Pythagorean theorem, guys. The only difference is how you answer the question. This first one, all we're doing is finding the missing number. We're going to either do it in radical form or we're going to do it in decimal form. Any questions on that before we go to the next type? Okay, on the next type, you'll see it's different because they give you all 3 numbers. When you have all 3 numbers, you got to decide which one is the greatest number. So out of these 3 numbers, the greatest number is going to be 8. Out of these 3 numbers, the greatest number is going to be 14. Now, I know that 8 is the biggest number here, but real quick, just so you can see, type it on your calculator. 4 times 3 square roots equals. It's like 6.9-ish, I think. Did y'all get 6.9-ish? Okay. Not square root. You're typing 4 times 3 square root. No, that's not the square root symbol. That's times 3 square root and then equals. I think it's like 6.9-ish. Okay, I just want to make sure you know how to type that, because to be able to do the next step, you got to be able to type that. Anybody have any concerns, questions, anything just on deciding which one is the hypotenuse? Okay. Now we just use Pythagorean theorem. What you're trying to decide is, does this make a right triangle? It's a yes or no question. Okay, this is yes or no. So here we go. 4 square roots of 3 squared plus 4 squared equals 8 squared. Okay, guys. Grab your calculators again. Okay, 4 times 3 square root equals, just like you did before, should say 6.9 on your calculator, and then hit the square button after that. This one, after you hit equals, hit the square button. It should give you 48 if you've typed it correctly. Anybody need me to type through it? I did? Okay. So type 4, hit the times button, then 3, hit the square root button, the little one with the radical, then hit equals. Do you see 6.9 on your calculator? And then hit square. Got it? Okay. And if you don't hit the equals, it doesn't do it, because it's only doing the square, it's not doing the whole multiplying first. That's a very good question. Very good point to bring up, that question. Anybody else? Okay, here we go. What's 4 squared? 16. What's 8 squared? 64. So now your job is to add these two together. What's 48 plus 16? It is the same. So if they're the same, and it's 64 equals 64, is it a right triangle? Well, let's write it out here. Let's remind you. If they're equal, if the two sides are equal when you do Pythagorean theorem, it is a right triangle. So the answer would be yes. If the two sides are not equal, then the answer would be no. Basically, if Pythagorean theorem works, if it makes the two sides equal, it's a right triangle. Anything? Some of y'all are doing the next one. Okay, here we go. 5 squared plus 12 squared equals 14 squared. The biggest number, the one with the greatest value, always has to go last. So what is 5 squared? 25. Plus 12 squared is 144. And we already did 14 squared. What was it? It was on, I can't see the example, so I can't see it. 196. Okay. What is 25 plus 144? 169. Oh, look, do y'all see it's the same numbers, but they're reversed? You gotta be careful about that, because my little brain is thinking they're the same. They're not. They are not equal to each other. 169 is not worth the same amount that 196 is worth, so the answer is no, it is not a right triangle. Anybody have anything they need to ask about? Have any concerns, any questions, anything they need to know before we move on? Okay. You good? Okay. I thought you were waiting to ask me something. You look like you were waiting to ask me something. Anybody else? Okay, here we go. Next section. The next section is going to be one where they ask you to say, here are two numbers. Find the third number. Make it a whole number. That means no decimals. Okay? It's got to be a whole number answer, so you're rounding the nearest whole number. And it says, what would that number be if it's the hypotenuse? So guys, the easiest way to do it is just put the third number as an unknown. I put it as x. That's the easiest way to do it, in my opinion. Just put it as x. Then you do Pythagorean theorem just like you did on examples 1 and 2. You're treating it like an unknown, so you're doing 8 squared plus 15 squared. Why does it keep doing that? Equals x squared. So 8, sorry? So we're about to do it right now. Do 8 squared on the calculator. What's 8 squared? 64. Then 15 squared is what? 225 equals x squared. Now you got to add these two together. 64 plus 225 is going to be 680. No, not. What? I'm sorry. 289. Nice. Equals x squared. How do you get rid of the square? Square root. Square root. I actually think that's a whole number. Isn't that a perfect square? Is it 17? That one actually turned out nice. That one was actually a whole number. I don't think the next one is a whole number. I think the next one we have to round to the nearest whole number. So let's try this one. Oh, anything on that one? I'm sorry, before I go on. Okay, here we go. So 7 squared plus 23 squared equals x squared. Now we've done 7 like several times already. That's 49. I know that one, but I don't know what 23 squared is. 529. Yes? I just want to make sure I'm doing the right thing. Okay, add 49 plus 5, 29. That's going to be 8. Carrier 1, that's going to be 6. That's going to be 7. 578 equals x squared. Take the square root, take the square root. Now listen, you cannot have decimals. They wanted whole number answers. Okay? If you want whole number answers, what is that going to be? 24? That's the closest whole number. Do y'all agree that's the closest whole number? I have no idea what it is. Let me look. Oh yeah, easily, because it's 24.04. It's got a 0 after it. That's definitely the closest whole number. Excuse me. Questions, concerns, anything before we do our last slide? Y'all are doing good. Better than some of the other classes sometimes. That's good. You'll actually get some time to work today. Everybody's good? Okay. Last slide is going to be not only doing the ones that are just Pythagorean theorem as far as for right triangles, you can also tell if a triangle is acute or obtuse based on Pythagorean theorem. So when you see this, you've got a triangle. It says if a triangle is not right, it must either be acute or obtuse. Based on that, the inequalities below are going to show you which one it is. If you do Pythagorean theorem and the first side is greater than the second side, let's say it is 40 is greater than 25. Okay? 40 is greater than 25. If the first number is greater than the second number, then the triangle is actually acute. Because the two sides that are shorter are the ones that are there. It's the opposite of kind of what you'd think. Greater than makes it acute. If a squared plus b squared is less than c squared, like 25 is less than 40, then it is going to be obtuse. It is going to be obtuse. If this, basically if the hypotenuse is the longest one is greater than the other two squares, you're always going to end up with an obtuse triangle. Now here's the way I remember it, and when you get your test, this is an easy thing to put right above this on these questions. If it's right, the numbers are going to be equal. If it's acute, it's always going to have it as a greater than symbol. If it's obtuse, it's always going to be a less than symbol. Anything before we do the problems? Okay, guys, it's just 3 more Pythagorean theorem problems. All we got to decide is they're acute, obtuse, or right. So here we go. 7 squared plus 14 squared equals 16 squared. Just so you know, we're testing on just 2 sections next Friday. Just giving you a heads up. I like you to know ahead of time. Y'all know it's all posted on Canvas, but I like to mention it way ahead of time. So 7 squared we said was 49. I even know 14 squared is 196 because we've done it so much today. What's 16 squared? 256. Okay, add 49 and, what is it with that folder? Add 49 and 196. 245. Okay, now 245 does not equal 256. What is 245 compared to 256? Is it greater than or less than? Less than. And if it's less than, what kind of triangle does this make this? Obtuse. An obtuse triangle. Perfect. Let's do that again. 9 squared plus 40 squared equals 41 squared. Let's see, do I know these? 9 squared I know is 81. 4 times 4 is 16 plus the 2 zeros, 1600. And I don't know what 41 squared is. You're going to have to tell me that one. 1681. Oh, okay. Well, look. What's 81 plus 1600? 1681 equals 1681. And since they're equal, what kind of triangle does that make it? Right. If they're equal, it's right. If they're equal, it is a right triangle. Okay, last one, guys. A lot of radicals in this one. Now, I will tell you that normally I'd make you go through and figure out which one's the greatest, but I want to get y'all some time to work. So I will tell you that the last one is definitely your hypotenuse. So it's going to be 2 square roots of 3 squared plus 4 square roots of 2 squared equals 3 square roots of 5. I'll get it. Give me a second. Square roots of 5 squared. Try typing those on your calculator, guys. See if you can get those numbers. Yeah. Let me look. I don't, but I can look it up. What period again? Third? Come on.
Fourth.
Fourth? Okay. Let's see. Lanesha.
Lanesha what?
Winchester.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Okay, guys. So, let's keep going. Here we go. So, 2 times square root of 3 squared should be 12 plus. Is it 36? 32? Okay. Equals 45? 45. Anybody need me to type through any of those? You know I will, guys. You just gotta ask. Anybody having any trouble typing those? Yeah, which one? Just want to do one? Okay, let's try this one in the middle. Do 4 times 2 square root equals, gotta hit equals, and then hit the square button. You get 32? There you go. You see what it was? Okay. Anybody else? Okay, so 12 plus 32 is going to be 44 compared to 45. They are not equal. 44 is, and I'm kind of surprised by this. I was surprised when I did the notes the first time for this. 44 is less than 45, so this one is actually also what? Obtuse. It is obtuse. Now, we didn't have one that was like this, so I'm going to put this last little thing out here to the side. If it said 45 is greater than 44, what would it be? Acute. Now, we didn't have one like that, so I want to just show you what it looks like if it was one that was going to be acute. Anybody have any concerns, questions, anything about it? Okay, guys, you already have the assignment because when we cleaned out folders, I went ahead and gave you the